Tuesday, June 16th, meeting of the Waynesboro City Planning Commission. Ms. Stewart, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a motion on the agenda.
I move that we approve and adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Meeting minutes from April 21st.
I move that we approve the April 21st meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We approve the April 21st minutes. That brings us to Mr. Cockrell, the man of the hour.
Yeah.
For our Waynesboro Together Comprehensive Plan Update, Land Use Discussion.
All right. Great.
Take it away.
Well, we can pick it up where we left off last time, but anything to get started from staff?
I don't think so. I don't have anything.
Okay. Great. Well, last time we laid out an agenda. We talked a bit about the draft land use goals. I did do a second round of those, a little bit polished based off of our notes from last time. I think we had great discussion, so there was a lot of good material in there that we pulled from. We did review neighborhood boundaries, and there was some discussion on approach with that. And we worked our way down to defining gateways and talking through those. So that was where we left off. And I was going to pick up with some kind of updated goal very draft statements. But just if we're at the eye doctor and using the bigger lenses to figure out one versus two on kind of on the bigger side of our scope, this might be a slight kind of smaller lens. We still have a few lenses to go, but just to make sure we're in the right neighborhood in terms of direction from what we heard from you all. I did want to show you that, Jeff. So, we did.
Nicely done. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we got a little band over here, and we figured we weren't sure the size of the trout that would be dropped, so we do have a crane in this one. But all joking aside, I was just giving a presentation through VCU talking about the importance of having community events, and that really can be a real driver for economic development. I think it was New Albany, Mississippi, I believe, that they had a farmer's market once a month, and on days they had the farmer's market, which drove people there. Sales receipts went up 25% in the local businesses along Main Street. So there's plenty of cases about that, of having events really helping to bring people to your Main Street businesses here. So we thought we would be responsive to your request, but also from the economic development side of events like this are things that you can really build off of. All right, so last time we had 6 goals, and there's some elements of these that you all seem to like. There's some elements that were fine, but maybe needed a little bit more polishing. And there were some areas where there was a lot of overlap. These were really seen more as 6 different options, but just kind of a starting point. We had grow a compact and connected, fiscally responsible pattern. One of the things we talked about is getting some density in some parts of the city when maybe the priority is more downtown, and getting reinvestment in that specific area. So what densities are appropriate in different parts of the city. We had, as a second one, reinforce downtown and the South River corridor as mixed-use place. We had renew commercial corridors and underused sites into more productive places. We had strengthen complete, stable, connected neighborhoods. We had some discussion here about investment in the neighborhoods while trying to avoid gentrification in those areas. We had some discussion about protect natural resources and reduce exposure to environmental risks. And then we had shape, development, and distinct, well-defined places that fit their context. So there's some overlap here. There's also discussion, going back to you, Jeff, about the importance of outdoor recreation to the local economy, but that is a land use factor as well. So what we have here is kind of a new set of options. It's not far from final, but this is hopefully a refinement. But you can tell us with this second data point if we're heading in the right trend here, the right direction. But if going off the notes came up with one goal on land use would be focus growth downtown while preserving the South River as a natural corridor. This is something that's been consistent going back through the 70s. This is very clearly your North Star kind of action here that's been part of land use all the way through. So this is direct the city's most compact mixed use and higher density development. Whoopsies. I don't know what I just did. Oh, the computer's restarting.
Uh-oh, I didn't mean to bring the virus from work. Oh, Lord.
Oh, okay.
I thought I left all that at work. Twice I was in the middle of writing a document and my computer decided to update.
Well, I will say, so the, on downtown, that seems like that's pretty solid. The second one is strengthen neighborhoods through compatible infill and better connections. So it's kind of consolidating a couple goals here. That was protect and improve existing neighborhoods with safe streets, nearby services, housing choices that fit their context, and a stronger walking, biking, transit, and street connections downtown, schools, parks, and daily needs. So really focus more on that neighborhood piece. In the plan, that really could be where we have some of that discussion on neighborhoods that we talked about last time. The third one is to renew corridors, which we'll talk about entrance corridors tonight. Renew corridors and underused sites without weakening downtown. So that was something that really came up of, we don't have strong corridors here in neighborhood centers, but we also don't want to take from the downtown area either. We don't want to compete with different parts of the city. And we had here of reinvest in aging commercial corridors, vacant buildings, that came up quite a bit through public engagement, and underused properties so they become safer, more attractive, and more productive, while reserving the strongest mixed-use intensity for downtown and other clearly defined activity areas. So going back to, again, having the right density in the right places in downtown, and some of these corridors seem to be the focus there.
And Will, with that one, I know one thing that we had mentioned and talked about, or at least I know I had expressed, was what does that reinvestment not only in communities look like, but also downtown?
Yeah.
Because that was something that I saw when reading the different land use and comp plans, was that there was this drive for downtown, and there were some what seemed to be good ideas and targets. I don't know if they've been implemented. Like there was one maybe where you taxed, it was a special tax to increase purchase attractiveness, but I don't know if the city went through with that in 2008, but just incorporating those ways of and what the reinvestment would look like.
Yeah, and that's, when we're looking at, during the steering committee, we had discussion about what's the importance of that downtown boundary. And I think that's part of it, of just kind of where to invest that infrastructure, because we have limited resources, and with those limited resources, we have to prioritize where are we going to put that. And when we make public investment in infrastructure, that almost across the board is going to then spur private sector investment in those areas. So of making sure if you want certain densities in certain areas, that's where we put that investment. Yeah. So there's that. Item 3.4 is build Waynesboro's outdoor identity while protecting natural resources. So those things go hand in hand together. We have protect the South River, floodplains, streams, slopes, open space, and sensitive lands, while strengthening Waynesboro's role as an outdoor recreation community connected to the Blue Ridge, the Appalachian Trail, Shenandoah National Park trails, and river access. So to kind of like really sum it up in 4 clear, concise points, it's grow downtown, support strong neighborhoods, renew our corridors, and then build off of Waynesboro's outdoor identity. 4 clear, concise statements for the land use goals.
Using giant trout.
Using a
Yeah.
giant trout
Yeah.
as really the symbol of how these come together.
Symbol of reality.
Yeah.
Another, just, I'll wait and say it, for the 4 statements, I think it summarizes, I feel like what we were talking about.
Okay.
In agreement with them.
Okay. Great.
Will, in any of the discussions about revitalizing downtown, I know that sometime in the future, the Natural History Museum is going where the old Advanced Auto parking lot and our farmer's market is right at the moment. Has there been any discussion about if you're bringing people downtown, how they get here and where they park? Has anybody brought up any ideas about that?
It hasn't come up so much through the process yet, but
Yeah, and the only thing I can say about the parking is that the city doesn't have a parking requirement for downtown
Yeah.
because our desire is that there would be
Be
kind of
walkability.
walkability and the density of development there to allow for that to happen. Whether we're there yet or not, there could be disagreements about. I will say that the museum is required to have a certain,
Yes.
as a state entity.
Yeah.
They're required to have a certain amount of parking, whether it be on site, but they've also asked us to provide some adjacent numbers. But as far as our land use discussions and our stakeholder discussions have gone, there haven't been a lot about parking. There have been some, recent state code changes that further reduce our ability to require parking. And I think that's more on the residential side if I'm reading that correctly. But yeah, parking is always something that people feel, strongly about either way. But as far as our downtown core district is concerned, we do not have a parking minimum requirement in hopes that, the businesses will provide the parking that they feel like they need and that will have kind of the density and walkability there.
Because one way to get people downtown, I know Waynesboro does not have one now, but in the past, they had, I believe, 2, maybe 3 train depots. And, that way, people from Charlottesville or wherever could ride the train down here, get off. The track is right there, a quarter of a mile away, and they could walk to downtown, and then when they're done, to catch a train back to wherever they come from. But I don't know if the city or the railroad is thought about that or anything? Cause I know Stanton's got the train depot right there in the middle of downtown. You step off and you're there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've heard a lot of people bring up the idea. I have not directly dealt with the railroad as far as these things are
Yep.
concerned, but it's my understanding that, that is a really far out there idea that we might not, that might never come to fruition.
Yeah.
What might be more likely would be for us to think about, as far as a land use perspective is concerned, where is some kind of potential bus hub in our downtown area?
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
that's something we don't have currently. And Stanton recently remodeled the Lewis Street hub downtown. So I see that as being something, more immediate or more within the 20-year time frame of the plan, is that maybe we would want to be thinking about like a downtown bus hub.
Could you incorporate the park and ride over by Chick-fil-A where the Afton Express works out of, and then have just a local bus that picks people up there, brings them downtown, drops them off, and takes them back?
Yeah, it would have to be working with the CSPDC in identifying that new stop, and then obviously, finding a parcel or a location for that. But as far as we talk about land use in this discussion, that's something that we could definitely, try and identify potential areas for.
I'm gonna let y'all use mine for now.
Okay.
Okay.
We think the thing just went kaput.
Oh. Okay.
But you can use mine for now.
Okay. Thank you.
I like when our IT person says kaput.
Yep. That's a very
I knew it
technical term.
wasn't good when he carried the computer out of the room, so.
Yeah. It's a very technical term, kaput.
So as we transition to the computers, I go back to thinking of outdoor recreation. And I don't know how you can petition, like, say, Richmond and just say, I see the signs that go up on the interstate. And there's Fishburne. Here, can we get ourselves designated the fly fishing capital of Virginia and put signs up as you're entering into Waynesboro's corridors on 94, 96, or 99, stating that, so people may not be coming into our community, but they're driving by going, oh, this is the fly fishing capital of Virginia, I should check it out. I don't know if that's viable, I don't know if how do you get that designation, or can you just put up the sign and
Leslie,
ask for?
you shouldn't need that network interface. I don't when I use my secondary computer. See, when it says keep trying,
You have
after
to
you
do
log
the
in.
whole email because it's not your computer.
Yeah. So that box will pop back up in just a second. Maybe.
It does it to mine when I take my laptop.
Working with some other communities that issue's come
So
up about.
see if it'll do it. Yeah.
You can work with VDOT to get a sign on the
Okay.
interstate.
Email.
There was one community that they said it was off the interstate, and they said it was a certified business-friendly community.
Use your whole email.
And I asked somebody, I said, so what is a certified business-friendly community? I'm not aware of that certification. And the person I was talking to said, there is no such thing. It's just, they just made up the title, and then they just got that sign put up. So it was it's kind of interesting. The VDOT is really kind of the keeper of signage on the interstate. It's something worth to follow up on. Yeah.
That's odd, because at UVA, you don't have to type in the whole password on somebody else's computer, because that network's all tied together. It recognizes the first part of it.
Yeah, I got you. I can help with that.
Oh, Lord, look at all the networks here.
What's that?
Wonder if they, up on YouTube, they got the multicolor panel said we are experiencing technical difficulties.
If the YouTube stream's going on, my father-in-law from Australia might be watching, so I have to say, we are the people. From Scotland, there's been a Scotland takeover in Boston for FIFA World Cup. So if he's watching, that's for him.
You going to any of the matches, Jeff?
We thought about it, but that's an expensive ticket. So we also thought about just going to Boston and hanging out. You know, because he's all about the tarp hunt and experiencing that, like what Fenway Park experienced a couple days ago. But I think he's satisfied just sitting in good old Waynesboro, Virginia.
Watching it on TV?
watching on TV.
Yeah, I heard the tickets are very, very pricey. Especially the ones in New Jersey and New York, because it's rumored that Prince William is coming.
See, Team USA had a nice showing.
See, the trouble is, they competing with the College World Series.
In the United States, across the world, nothing competes with FIFA.
No, FIFA rules the world, but in the United States, they play second, third, fourth, fifth.
I'll tell you what, Iraq was tied with Norway when I left. And some set of islands I've never heard of beat Spain. Oh, no.
Which was crap.
Oh, I think this one went kaput.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I think we can have
Let's give that a try.
a quality dialogue without the PowerPoint, but I was loving the renderings.
Yeah.
that you were teasing was with 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Of what we were gonna see up here on the gateway, so I'm curious to see those, but if we can't, we can still have a dialogue.
Yeah, we can
Send us
still-
the imagery later.
We can still
I think now we got it.
do that.
All right, get that world.
Okay.
Did that say Bat Dan?
Yeah, man, Dan, probably. I don't know where you saw that, but probably.
Hi, uh-oh.
All right, you should be good.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a minute to set up the
I
profile.
don't think I need any of it, it's just gonna plug this drive in and.
Yeah.
Go.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry for all the trouble.
No, it's okay.
Things go kaput.
Yeah.
And that's what computers are built to do. Go kaput when you need them.
All right, I think then if you just have a flash drive.
It should be in there.
It's not in the one they took it.
Well, I have it on have a backup plan.
If it was in the computer that went kaput, it went out the door.
So you ran 4 miles today after.
So I ate at 1 and then ran at like 4:30. And that gave me enough time to shower and then come here. So that'll be the only thing I eat today.
I'm having dessert on Jimwood's jelly.
I seen Jim yesterday.
I've never.
He was a beat man when I seen him. Said he went to Washington Sunday night, didn't get home till 4 o'clock.
That's what we try to, here. It's not saving the flash drive.
forging ahead if we.
You got what, an HDMI cable plug out there?
It's, yeah, I had the same thought. I have a city laptop here, but it's not, I have, to get flash drives, I have to use a USB-C dongle, and I don't think mine is in my backpack.
I'm happy to put my Lenovo to work.
Well, as we're getting that figured out, we did look at the Brutcham's property. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Borsham. We did do a site analysis on that, so we have slides on that too to show steep slopes, soils, connections, and so forth, to take a look and see what's possible there on that site. So I know that last time we talked, one of the things that you all said was that we really need to have a plan for that property, and if we don't have a plan coming out of the comp plan, then we've missed something. So we do have an analysis, which it's a little hard to share verbally, but we'll say that the next thing we wanted to discuss was the different gateways coming into town here. So we talked about there being 6 different gateways really into town, including coming down up South Delphine. So that being one of, you get off the interstate and come into town that way. Certainly with the gateway being kind of a face of the community, it is certainly, the first thing you see as you come into town before you even get to downtown. So we'll show some images of that. We'll look at Jones Hollow coming in off of Afton. And of course you've got the property that we're discussing here on the left as you come into town. We got some billboards there on the side of the road. You make your way down towards the down to the brewery as you come into town here. We have North Delphine coming in from the north side of what we see, so we'll share some images and we'll talk about that. We have Ivy Street coming in from the north, was another gateway coming in, which is a little bit more of a rural type of road design coming in. Coming in from the west, we've got West Main Street.
Yep.
Can you just email the presentation to me?
Yes, I can do that.
I can run and get, I have a Windows laptop in my office, too, that I can run and get.
Well, if you can email me the presentation, I should be able to discuss it.
I think we should all run a couple miles with knives before I'm playing for next year.
Yeah.
We'll play pickleball with Phil.
I'm gonna send it to you as a OneDrive link because it's a pretty big PowerPoint.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna try something real quick here.
So,
How much of the Bersham property is actually in the city limits?
the entire thing.
The entire thing?
How many acres is that?
I
If I
have,
had to guess, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500, 4,000.
yeah. It was 875 acres.
And how
So
big is
the pond is 6.6 acres.
Oh, that must not, I'm thinking from Waynesboro all the way up to 64, so that must only be, that must be two different parcels. Cause it's more than 800 and some acres between Delphine, 250 and 64, I can tell you that now. So who owns the other parcel, Jeff?
There's, the city owns a couple parcels between, the Bersham property and residential properties off of Delphine. And then on the other side, you have, two different landowners in the county.
Okay,
I don't recall their names off the top of my head, but they're two separate entities in the county with two parcels.
Oh.
And you've got, National Park or Blue Ridge Parkway.
yep.
I forget which landowner's the next one, but.
I sent that email, so
I can see it here, but it's not letting me look at anything more.
do you want me to?
Yeah, when I, yeah, I think that's the next step here. Now is the time for public comment.
Wanna open the floor, Will?
We, you know,
Yeah.
how about
take-
this? You know how to switch seats, you do whatever you want.
Is this your last official meeting?
No, I go August.
Oh,
Chair for a day.
Nah.
you can just say no on that.
The new Outlook for Windows. Microsoft
You
Edge.
can continue without, that should be fine. Okay, hopefully we're good to go. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I guess do we have the slide advancer thing? or-
Yep.
That may not be, I'm not sure.
No, probably not the one plugged in.
Try again. Nothing?
That's okay. I can just stand.
Well, if you have the keyboard, will it work going there? Is it, I guess.
If not, I can sit right next to it, you can go forward, I can manually do it.
I'll just stand over there.
Typically works. I guess if that computer's just not recognizing any drives.
Yeah.
It's like,
Alright, something moved somewhere.
okay, let's see. Is that you, Allison?
Was it the keyboard maybe? No, I'm not sure. Maybe I just hit one button. That one was me, I'm using the arrow keys there. Sorry about
That
that.
should be very advanced. Is that I know Cameron does.
Jeff, you need that as your screensaver.
I'm gonna ask for that copy.
Oh, the image?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Send that to everybody.
So just we have 4 different goal areas here, and we've got being, on the focus downtown, some strategies to make downtown city's primary mixed-use growth center, use the South River as a protected, organized spine for this area, align downtown growth with infrastructure, so that's what we're talking about, Nigel, about those investments, expand attainable housing in walkable mixed-use areas, and that came up through all public engagement in downtown area, and then activate downtown at Waynesboro civic and cultural heart, and that's where kind of using that to help bolster, fill some of those empty storefronts and supporting some businesses can come into play. Talk about strengthen neighborhoods through compatible infill and better connections. That could mean looking at support neighborhood scale housing choices, preserve and reinvest in existing homes. Here, our existing neighborhoods, improve everyday walking, biking, transit, and school access. The school access one came up a lot in the youth survey. Build stronger neighborhood support systems, including childcare, mental health came up, engagement. Strengthen neighborhood safety, maintenance, and pride. So address property maintenance as well. That's something that came up a lot in Port Republic plan, certainly.
So I'm trying to 1,000-foot view as well, and I don't want to get us off track here, but are we talking about including something in the, in support of that, specific goal, right? So code enforcement, immediately my spidey senses tingle because I think about as somebody who goes to court every day.
Yeah.
So we're talking about potentially identifying as a goal for the city in the comprehensive plan, providing more resources towards that aim, right?
There's kind of 2 prongs on property maintenance. One is also programs and assistance to help people get their property improved, to help make those
Sure.
improvements in their home. So you have kind of the code side, but the other side to it is helping provide resources
Sure.
and assist people to make those improvements on site.
Okay.
How that's together.
But we wouldn't get as granular in the comprehensive plan as saying, hypothetically, like, we have 1 code enforcement officer, we want 3, like, it's never gonna get that granular.
That'd be pretty detailed.
Okay.
At the staffing level. I mean, you can include that, but it's probably, for the sake of this plan, getting a little too detailed.
Sure, I just wanna make sure I understand the scope.
So renew corridors, so this is gonna go right into our next item. So we have retrofit aging commercial corridors into safer, more productive places. Keep downtown first for this strongest mixed-use intensity. You all talked about having certain densities are appropriate, but only in specific areas. Target reinvestment in visible opportunity areas here. Pair redevelopment incentives with public benefits and grow small business, workforce, and entrepreneurship ecosystems. Really trying to, of those 4 things, I try to improve those corridors. And then we had on the outdoor identity, we had on this one, protect and restore cities' waterways, floodplain systems, build and connect greenway, park, and trail network. That was another thing that came out of our last discussion. Which one we have that? Treat green infrastructure as essential public infrastructure. Position Waynesboro as an outdoor gateway community, and then invest in parks, facilities, and operations for long term. So certainly overlap with some of the other topics and themes that we had, the land use is for a comp plan really the thing that helps bring it all together, so it seems appropriate to have
What-
that.
When we talked about Smith Farm, we talked about the historic goal of the full Greenway Loop and how that has changed over time. Has that, and some of it's no longer attainable and some of it's because of the way some things have infill developed, is there a current connect the Greenway all the way around plan? Or is that,
So I think we have one, but with this process, we'll definitely need to re-look at pieces, as you mentioned, and to say like, oh, here's a piece that might be difficult for whatever reason, but, you know, it's my understanding that kind of that conceptual circular route that was identified in many iterations of our plan is still the plan. There might be little areas that need improvements, but for the most part, it's a continual loop that we're continuing to work towards. There, as far as I know, there's no major section that we're unable to do, but this would be good to look at and refine further. You know, hey, Parks and Rec has, you know, recognized some issues with this, or we didn't get easements here, or some of those little tweaks.
yeah, and I think about, some of the controversy around the.
Phase
leg-
4.
Yeah, and how we maybe can identify some of that stuff so that we set clear expectations. Make sure that the comprehensive plan tells us as the planning commission or whoever, maybe it's not us, that we need to, that's obviously been an issue in the past, and how do we identify that and create clear communication about expectations?
Are you talking about having to move the Greenway from the river to 14th Street to Ridgeway?
Yeah, that was phase 4.
Yeah, I forget what the phase number was, but I know originally it was supposed to follow along the river, and there was some pushback, and it ended up being on 14th Street.
Yeah, so this process, you know, in our hopes to get the majority of the community involved, it's the planning commission recognizing where that alignment is hopeful to be. It's the public recognizing that, and then it's council kind of giving that final stamp of approval so that then as we take on development applications, apply for grants, talk to property owners, you know, hopefully you're not having that pushback because you have kind of laid out what the community has identified as the location.
Yeah, 'cause I noticed on there you got Sunset Park connections. I'm wondering with the rail line right there below Sunset Park, in order to address Will's issues of possible conflicts down the road, it would probably be good to have some idea of how you could connect the Greenway to Sunset Park. Because at some point, the railroad is gonna come into play.
Yeah, so Parks and Rec is adamantly and currently working through all of those issues with, you know, some of their connections and trail connections that they're planning directly with the railroad. I don't think anything's been solved at this point, but it's a continued conversation, and yes, something that we would include as part of the plan.
Just out of curiosity, like, when we talked about like the entrance corridors, and like what that maintenance would look like, it was just something that had popped up in my mind that I was having a conversation with someone about. Instead of Public Works having to maintain so much of a median in the entrance corridors, what if we could like replace the grass with like native Virginia wildflowers?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it serving multiple purposes. It takes away the maintenance for Parks and Rec to keep that up. And I know that the trees sometimes cause issues with maybe splitting the medians or growing their roots into the street. But it still possibly could have some benefit and beautification to an entrance corridor.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think,
the others in the city.
I think VDOT, that's what they did on 64 to cut down on the cost of mowing. They put some of them wildflower beds in there.
VDOT does, I know this only because I deal with people who hit the things in the medians on a regular basis. But VDOT does have safety feedback, I think,
Yeah.
about the size and scale of trees.
Yeah, they don't allow
Yeah.
certain plantings
yeah,
and
but I think
encourage
it's a great
others.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're working on one project on a road and that, the district we were working with wouldn't let us put any trees at all.
Mm-hmm.
Cause they were saying that, you know,
Block
people
views.
are hitting and blocking views and, but of some native, you know, wildflowers and that is, yeah.
Hmm.
That is. So if we're, you know, we started with some themes last time, if we're trying to, you know, slowly fine tune, and we're still fine tuning, but are these goals and strategies, do you feel like they're heading in the right direction, or have we steered off track?
I think they're headed in the right direction. They're still not at the 500-foot level. We're still about 10, maybe 5,000.
Okay.
I think the fact that you've got us all talking about specific things is a pretty good
Yeah.
indication of, yeah, that we're headed in the right direction.
Okay.
I mean, you know, invokes, for me, it invokes certain ideas about certain things that,
Yeah.
I think it gets closer to what we had talked about last one, the issue that we were having was the lack of teeth.
Yeah.
So it's like now we kind of, like Will said, we see the direction. I think the thing was still, I guess the question for me will always be like, how?
Yeah.
You know, how are we enforcing this? How are we making it timeable to where we're not doing this in year 19 as we're starting to pursue the next comp plan?
Right. Yeah. Sure. Okay. We're gonna talk about gateways here, so we talked about the 6 different gateways around the city here, so we'll kind of take a walk through each of them, so starting with, we'll just call Gateway 1, just for, it doesn't indicate importance, just our first one, coming from South Delphine. Some of the trips are coming along here, but really most of them are coming off the interstate, because you're coming into town or leaving town. And obviously, when you come through of, you know, the interstate here, you're coming into town, there's a small,
Little sign.
little sign of a welcome to Waynesboro
Mm-hmm.
sign right here. But for the most part, you know, 4 lanes, median, going back to Metro, what you're saying of, if one of those goals is really to position yourself more as the outdoors community, that might be one thing to think about, the gateway, is how do we communicate? But as we're coming through, we start to get into some residential uses, and then of course, the industrial over here on this side. If we turn up this way, we're going into some neighborhoods right before this, but we're heading towards downtown. You can kind of see the general streetscape here, and then we get really more into the residential uses before we get downtown. But as we can see, general characteristics, 4-lane road, generally a median on this. Otherwise, not a whole lot of other features here. When you all think about coming into town from this gateway, what are some of the thoughts you have when you're coming in? What are some things that you might like about this gateway coming into town? Or what are some of the things you might not like so much?
I'll start with the positive. I really love that when you're making that turn coming down the mountain, you really get to see Waynesboro progressively, like as you kind of feel like you're getting closer. Coming through that corridor, I think you kind of mentioned it. I mean, you just come into town. There's nothing exciting that says, ooh, like this might be a small town. Like, I think if I was the first person entering through that corridor, I'm like, did we take the right exit?
And plus, you got a lot of industrialization on the left after you get
And that's,
past that first, and after you get past Windsor, everything on the left is industrial, pretty much all the way to to Main Street.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I think that just then highlights the even greater importance of having a welcoming entrance corridor.
This is
I've always thought it's curious, given the amount of industrial on that side of town, that there's no commercial over there. I don't know, is that highway business, is it zoned highway business through there? Or is it all industrial? I
think
mean, I know
a
that
combo, but
I know that that's not the desirable turnoff for tractor trailers and stuff because of the grade on that ramp, right? But I've always thought, I mean, you look at the way we're on the Rosser exit, like everything is kind of grown out now, with the gas stations and car washes and everything. That's always struck me as curious. There's just nothing over there. Considering presumably with the industrial there's a lot of jobs and there's certainly some residential and that kind of stuff over there.
sewer water issues.
In the Chiclet Pit area, there are.
That's, yeah, farther out.
Anything else about this? I mean, in terms of entering town, the old, I mean, just for the sake of evoking discussion here, I'm just saying things. So, you know, the old way of when you knew you're coming into Waynesboro was a pretty dramatic structure with the columns and sign here. And then, you know, now we've got, you know, that sign, which is a nice sign, I'm not hating on it, but
It probably could be more prominent, the signage that's there. I mean, the road is probably too wide for anything resembling what may have been there at one point in time. But,
and then getting over to this side of the corridor, as we're entering town, we've got, you know, some older,
yeah, I think that's a perfect picture going back to one of the points of infilling the sidewalks, making things more walkable and, what is the word I'm looking for? Not welcoming. Inviting, I get, for lack of a better term, I can't think of what, yeah.
To me, and in some ways too, when you hit that exit, like, you know, it's from the top of the mountain all the way down, it's mature trees. You know,
Yeah.
it feels a little bit like almost you're still at the edge of not at the edge of the park, obviously, but, you know, you're still kind of getting that because of the slope of the ramp and that kind of stuff. You still feel like you're on the mountain a little bit too, even though you're not really by that point. But, you know, the mature trees and all that kind of stuff really kind of
Yeah.
give you more of that feel than some of the other entry corridors.
And I don't think either that an entry corridor has to be this elaborate parade.
No,
I think honestly just brighten it up, adding some colors,
I think that'd be the perfect entrance for your wildflowers,
Well,
from there all the way to Main Street.
Will, do you know, like, and maybe this is not totally knowable, but is there a way that we could learn if this is the, you know, most utilized, second most utilized in terms of, I just think about, I mean, I go through there every day to go to Stanton to pick my kids up from daycare because it's the quickest way to get from downtown out to the interstate. And I'm sure, and you know, when I go to Charlottesville, that's the way I go out, even though I live over near Rosser. So it's I would guess it's a pretty prominent, for residents like me that live on this side of town, it's a pretty prominent ingress, egress. And so I think, you know, I think of it, that whole area as kind of pseudo-industrial, but I use it all the time. I don't know.
You probably come through Windsor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I come, I mean, from downtown, I come out cut through to Windsor and, yeah, come out that way to go.
If I had to bet, I would probably say that the number one most used entrance into Waynesboro is the 250 entrance coming off a mountain, because you're coming down like you said, you got those big massive trees. You feel like you're in the mountain. It's except for the big curve that you got to go around. It's tranquil. It's inviting. And right there in that curve, years and years ago, I don't know if anybody remembers it, but there used to be picnic tables there, and you could pull off, have a little picnic. Why they went away, I don't know.
This is the exit to me where the Jones Hollow one is the one where we're missing an opportunity to tie the park
Yeah,
and all of that
Yeah.
into,
Waynesboro.
yeah.
That's where you need the big arch.
I'm not sure where that arch was. I thought it was here, but, I mean,
I think so.
Yeah,
I saw a picture, and if you it's an old picture, but I think the arch was more down towards where the kombucha place is now.
okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't at the city line.
I mean, I was taking this exit, getting here today,
Yeah,
and certainly thinking that as you come off, I mean, this is a very attractive, kind of natural entrance and
Yeah.
into the city. And I think Waynesboro, on the Virginia side, is the only city, might be one other, the only city that is right up against the national park. So it's a unique thing, I mean, right off the national park. But I think of another gateway is getting that connection off of the trail down into the city, which I know Parks and Rec is working on. I mean, that's its own gateway right there. But this is, in many ways, this is a winter photo here. As you're making your way down, I mean, you do get a couple of these billboards coming in. When we're thinking about like a natural entrance into town coming off the park, thinking about what are some things we can do to make it the best darn natural entrance you can make it. And those aren't big dramatic changes, they're, tweaks, but there's things that make it the best version of what it is. Certainly the billboards are there.
Yep.
And they're non-conforming.
They're non-conforming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like, once you get past, or once you're at Woodward,
yeah,
I think that's where something should go. Because, like, in the fall, when I would come home from school, that was my favorite exit to take.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing the tree canopy
yeah.
with the leaves changing, I mean, it was magical.
Mhm.
Well, and that's the way I would imagine, when you have the people that come in for fall foliage and stuff,
That's why
where
they
they're gonna
come
go.
in.
They're gonna go up and down,
Yeah. So it's just like, and that would be a place for like maybe the old sign. Like each entrance corridor kind of has its own
Ye-
unique personality,
Yeah.
and you really have to like sit in it to really see like what would look good here.
You know what I would like to see, Will, is, and I don't know if it's ready yet, is the rendering for the new streetscape coming down into Waynesboro on that side of town. I know originally they were doing away with both bike lanes, putting in an 8-foot asphalt walkway bike path on the left-hand side coming into town.
So that won't start until Blue Ridge Kombucha, I guess,
Yeah.
across the street, and then carry into where, I guess, right at Basic City. That would be
Yes.
kind of that alignment. But yeah, we don't have any, like 3D renderings of that right now, but it's in the design phases, engineering phases. We were short on funding, applied for revenue sharing, which is a 50% local match and 50% grant. Didn't get all of it, but got a significant amount. So that project continues to be designed.
Yeah, because that's going to change the interpretation of this entry corridor totally.
Yes, it will.
And it may change how you design it as well.
And that project, I can't remember if there are some billboards farther down that the hope was to remove with that project. I mean, all that was maybe conceptual in the application. What actually comes to fruition, we'll see, but,
Yeah, cause there is a
That's in
billboard
design.
right there before you get to,
yeah, there is one on the left.
Bonnebu's. It's on the left right there. Bonobos. I always mispronounce it.
One possibly glaring issue is when the outfitter went out. Are there other businesses along this corridor that really connect you to folks coming off the trail?
And one, like infrastructure related, is the water pressure issues. So like existing buildings, you know, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but like anybody who has an interest in like building a new building, there's really not the ability to do it unless they make some kind of major water infrastructure upgrade. So I would say that that inhibits kind of the creep of development, if that's something that's wanted along that corridor, is the water pressure.
Why is the water pressure so low in that area?
Well, I think certain number of that area was like annexed as part of the county, and so just where our last fire hydrant stops, and then how it goes kind of uphill there. And there's just never been small pipes, older. So if a developer comes and wants to do something with their building, they have to make those upgrades. And so it's stopped a lot of, you know, interests along the way. So that's just an infrastructure constraint that also affects, you know, how your corridor develops, unless some large public investment's made or private.
So, Will, when you ask about the outfitter, are you talking about having something that draws people, that leans into that outdoor thing that draws people down? I mean, I still see lots of hikers in town every year.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of them here lately, but I gotta think that not having somebody, a place where you can come buy a new canister for your camp stove, has gotta hurt us.
Go ahead. Well, my wife and I host AT hikers for Warrior Expedition. These are all veterans that are hiking the trail the whole length due to PTSD or whatever. So we're dealing with that a lot when they come to town as far as resupplying. And one place they can get limited stuff is the fly fishing store downtown. They have fuel, meals, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And other than that, whatever's not available at Walmart, you know, there's an outfitter in Stanton, and then you got Harrisonburg, and then you got Charlottesville.
Yeah.
So it really has hurt not having access to those particular supplies.
And one of your main ideas is that outdoor community. And if you're the only city that is butting up right against that national park, it feels like a big gap here of not having that type of business.
Yeah, cause I'm not sure exactly what's in that outfitter place now. Is it a restaurant?
Yeah.
No,
well,
not the kombucha one.
They've ended up doing like, they own a flower shop
Oh,
that they
okay.
do for weddings and things, but then they also have kind of a mix of like mocktail type business selling, they sell like
Yeah.
some different cans and
Yeah.
things, Faded Poppy, and I can't remember the other name, Mother Matriarchus or something like that.
On your language or encourage as part of your goals and incentivize on the eastern side of town outdoor recreational type of businesses? Because if somebody's gotta come in and put the bill on a new building on the water, it's not realistic. So you'd have to look at existing buildings now.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and even with some of the existing, depending on, you know, if they're just using it for like if it's permitted as like a single family home, that's one thing. But if they're trying to even put any use in, I mean, the water upgrades are necessary all throughout that area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So, they're gonna have
no
to-
townhouses.
yeah.
But, yeah, just something to think about. Let's go to so next, coming up on the north side, we've got, coming into town here, we've got some residential along this. This one's a little bit more residential on certain segments. We do still have, 2-lane here, but these are some pretty wide lanes. This
Yeah.
is a wide travel way right there. As you're coming in, and then that.
It goes to
I think we
4
go to
lane.
4 lanes here. Again, we do have traffic counts on everything. We've done a traffic analysis. One thing, there are some roads where your volume to capacity ratio is low enough where you could think about trading a travel lane for something like trails or bike lanes or other features, and the roadway would still function well. So there are roads like that in town, if that's something you wanted to explore. But what do you feel about this entrance coming in? It's not one of the major entrances, but
But it is the one people coming down from Elkton and up north would use to come into town.
Stay off of 81.
Yeah, to stay off of 81.
Right.
Does the city still own the old dump site right there on the left before the billboard?
Yeah.
how big is that estate?
It's like 80 to 90 acres, I think.
This, to me, when I come in this way, it's like, am I there yet? I'm there yet. Oh no, there's more trees. Am I there? Like it's, my brain is fried. Maybe like not well defined.
Okay.
Like, am I in Dooms? Am I in Waynesboro? Am I
Yeah.
in Waynesboro? Am I in Basics? Like, it's because of the way it's kind of chopped up.
Yeah,
And you've got, the concrete plant, and you got the barbecue place, and you got residential, and it's just like do-do-do-do as you come through there.
and to me, the city line is in a little bit of a weird place. When,
What's that?
Is it a speedy
no, it's back down towards where,
American Legion?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
back,
it's right near the Mar,
Wayside.
right
Yeah.
near the,
yeah,
VFW.
no, it's not that far. Bradley's,
yeah.
yeah. And the VFW hall.
Yeah.
Right, well, it ain't the VFW hall anymore, I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it's, to me, it's always been in a weird location, but, I mean,
So it sounds like not entirely clear when you're in town or not.
yeah,
It feels
I'm like, well, there's no clear definition between Dooms and Waynesboro.
Okay.
Maybe there could be a use, and I just thought about this, like a use for signage that indicates, because you have 2 parks in that same entrance corridor. I don't recall seeing anything about Sunset Park until you're at Sunset Park.
Yeah,
So I don't know if like a sign that points to like a, because I mean, that would be a quick route to Rosenwald. It would also be a quick route to North Park,
yeah,
a quick route
To
to
Basic
Sunset
Park.
Yeah, Basic Park. So, okay, so you have 3 parks in that area. I forgot about Basic Park.
mm-hmm,
All within that same entrance corridor. It's just depending on which turn you take, how early you take it.
mm-hmm,
So you could have like a series of signs that kind of look unique and naturesque, that indicate and highlight the park. Because I mean, Waynesboro invests a lot in their parks, and
Yeah.
might as well point people to where they are.
The parks were one of the most commented asset
Yeah,
yeah.
to the gate thus far.
so might as well keep it a hot topic.
Good. Go other direction, Ivy Street, kind of similar, but this one feels a little bit more wide open.
At the moment until they build the townhouses.
So this is coming into town here, get, start to get some more residential on this, but it kind of feels like one of the more open entrances. Again, not a major gateway by any means.
Well, it is until you get right before Anna Marie Estates, and then the townhouses and everything else begin to overtake you.
Okay.
I think, you know, when you come in that way, because of the, like agriculture that you come through, coming into town, that area feels,
Very rural.
yeah, much more rural than the other. And because there's no industrial, it's still mostly residential out there, it feels more rural
Yeah.
than the others.
And I kind of like that. Like I said, I feel like each corridor has its own unique
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
And Hermitage is a lovely area, although it's outside of Waynesboro. I mean, it's a lovely area to travel through.
It's kind of an interesting comparison with the Jones to Hollow entrance. Coming in through 250, that feels natural, whereas this feels rural.
More
Yeah.
like national park natural versus like agricultural rural. Yeah.
Because as you're going through, there's just kind of like farmhouses or houses on large lots until then you get to like subdivision entrances with the city.
Is there a way to like almost funnel, use like maybe like trees or something, like funnel the entrance corridor to like a canopy as like you're coming in, similar to what you have on top of the mountain? I know that was somewhat unintentional, but intentionally make like a beautification funnel into the city from that corridor to kind of break up the subdivision surprise once you hit that.
I think it's also hard to define this, to your point, Nigel, like, it's a little undefined because of the growth out there right now. Like, when the developments get done and
Like Hannah's Ridge to your, like, as you're coming in, that one, it's like 109 lot subdivision that kind of started and then
Yeah.
since stalled, but that'll be there on the left
well, there's,
before you get to Anna Marie.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's just, I mean, it's construction is what, as somebody who started coming, that's the way I came into town when I came to work here in 2016. And so, you know, to me, it's like, oh my gosh, every time I drive by, something has changed a little bit, so it's kind of undefined in that way. But I think you're right, Nigel, there's an opportunity to be deliberate about, maybe be a little more purposeful about how that, because like, about how we define that gateway more naturally, particularly since I have to imagine that, you know, some of those people that picked like Hannah Ridge or Anna Marie or Hopeman, the stuff on Hopeman picked it because they're going to Stanton or they're going to Harrisonburg for work, right? So they're taking that corridor over to 81 on a pretty regular basis.
But you gotta have a right of way if you wanna put like the natural canopy.
Well, yeah, I wonder more about like, I mean, you know, just with what we do with signs and
Yeah.
plantings and trees as opposed to like, you know, big.
Yeah, cause the only designation that you're coming into Waynesboro is the VDOT sign says entering Waynesboro city limits, the green and white sign.
I thought
There's
a sign over there
on the
now?
right side.
On the right-hand side?
I must have never paid any attention to it.
It's it's somewhere near
It's
Anna
right
Marie.
before you hit, it's the back of Anna Marie.
Yeah.
where the
Okay.
shrubs are, and
Might
that
be a
person's
smoky
back
sign there.
here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not, yeah, it's like,
Yeah, not super prominent, but.
Oh,
It's kind of off in the back.
no wonder I'd have missed it.
It kind of seemed to us like this entrance might be the most potential to change.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate. Just growth pressures, development's already approved, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that this is more of the rural agriculture entrance and going back to your comment, Nigel, like, couldn't call on James City County. They've been growing a lot, but I feel like one of the things that James City County does really well is with their landscaping screening. That they might be growing a lot, and there's a lot going on, that they're masterful at their screening and landscaping, where you can't necessarily see it. It still feels like a historic, natural corridor in many of these roads, but you wouldn't know that there's commercial behind those trees. A tasteful sign that takes you in that direction. So there are some examples of that. It might not be quite the tree tunnel
Right,
that we're talking about, but it's kind of in that same vein.
At least makes you feel nestled.
Yeah, with this corridor right here, I don't know about anybody else, but I really don't feel like I'm in Waynesboro until I actually get to Hopeman Parkway. Then I feel like I'm in the city of
Yeah.
Waynesboro.
I don't disagree with that, cause it's so residential out there.
Yeah,
And that could be because it hasn't been defined.
yeah.
Like, there is no wellbeing
No, you're right, you know.
until you feel like, okay, this is actual city.
Yeah,
You see the school,
yeah.
you see the church.
And you see the ball field and all that.
And
Step, trying to
apartments.
turn right on.
Yeah, and apartments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Will, when you're talking about like being deliberate, are you talking about potentially like entry corridor designations with special zoning requirements that require screens and stuff like that? So the reason I ask is like, I mean, to some extent, I feel like the horse is a little bit out of the barn with some of these in terms of, I'm really beating that metaphor to death, aren't I? Beating a dead horse, the metaphor's coming full circle. So like, I mean, how do we, from a comprehensive plan, right, like presuming that there are, you know, maybe not even in the life cycle of this comprehensive plan, things are gonna get redeveloped in that area in a way that allow for that, how do we set the condition, like if we were to say, hey, we want to identify on all of our entry corridors now, at the edge of your commercial, residential lot, whatever, you have to put a class, whatever the screen is, class C, class B buffer, vegetative buffer screen, right? I mean, to what extent is that like, I don't know how to, like, how effective is that going to be if we decide this is what we're going to do now? Does that question make sense? Like, how do we create the implementation tool for city council or the next planning commission to use in these situations where there's already some pretty well-defined uses?
Maybe on the lower end of the pyramid, we're talking about goals and vision and strategies. But on the lower end of that would be the tactics. And we're working on that this summer. It's part of what we're trying to work through in different areas. But there'd be a regulation, a program, an initiative, or an investment. And kind of working down those four categories of tactics. One, you know, you could do with zoning, there could be some sort of overlay that includes landscaping. As you mentioned, the horse is out of the barn on several of these. That's something we can calculate of how much
What's
road
the impact?
frontage
Yeah.
is already
Sure.
is off the table for that strategy. But then you can check down to things like programs, and that's where there are communities that have programs for like tree plantings and landscaping retroactive after it's been put in, but the resources are available to help to retrofit on that. There's investments, like capital investments, of where there is possible right of way. The city could, in their capital side, actually invest in some landscaping on their own. So there's incentives or programs to help people put landscaping in. There are capital investments to help you put that in. There are regulations, like with overlays. And then at the same time, there are others that are probably just off the table because it's already done, the property owner is not gonna be interested, and there's just no right of way available. And for those, I would say one kind of hidden strategy might just be, if you get some segments of roadway that have really nice landscaping, there's the pressure effect. So if your neighbor renovates their house and this neighbor renovates their house, and your house could need some work, you now have more pressure to renovate your house, because now you got the worst looking house on the street. And so there is kind of that non-regulatory, non-governmental action, or just kind of human nature in the market. So,
And maybe like an incentive could be like, you know, if there was, like a city initiative through like the CIP maybe, where you can give out small funds, like, you know, $250 for like planting flowers or something like that along your property as an incentive.
there's some too of
Preservation.
Yeah, and also like partnerships too with like the Master Gardeners group or 4-H or, you know, different groups in the community that can help with that. I know I think Charlottesville had a program like that once upon a time. Yeah, there's a lot of options. Okay. So we have this one, and then coming in off of West Main Street. This is a little bit more
Commercialized.
commercialized. You know, 4 lanes with the suicide lane in the middle, or now I only know the slang language. I forgot the technical term. But we've got you know, this turn lane in the middle, dual turn lane. You know, very different than the other gateways we've talked about. The character does tend to change right around here. It turns a little bit more residential, and then kind of switches back to commercial again. So it's another corridor that feels a little
Happenstance.
a little choppy, just from my kind of outsider's view. What do you all think about this one?
Yeah, 'cause you're commercial down to the landscape thing, and then all of a sudden you're back into residential, and then once you get up there at McDonald's, you're back into commercial again.
And this area has a funded median project
Yeah.
and pedestrian infrastructure upgrades that,
Is there any discussion about continuing the 2 lanes each direction past the garden center? Or is that just gonna be too difficult to even go
Oh.
there?
I don't even think the road's wide enough.
yeah, I would have to,
Take
I
the
think the project improvements stop right before the garden center. And
I thought they
and
stopped
Hopeman
at the
Parkway.
debt.
No, they stop at Hopeman Parkway.
Oh,
Right
okay.
at the intersection, so there's really nothing else proposed beyond that.
There will be a median in
Yes.
place.
And I can't remember if that will be a landscaped median. I think there was some back and forth,
Okay.
with, you know, those that want the aesthetic benefits and then the maintenance issues, and those that don't, you know, want to have to maintain them, and then VDOT's requirements of what can be there. So I can't remember how that has finally gotten settled. There was some talk about, you know, the type of grasses that you plant so that there isn't as much mowing. And I know there was some discussion on tree heights, but I'm not sure the final on all of that.
Anything else with this border, or something you like, or something you don't like so much?
I honestly I don't know how you would beautify this area, cause there's so much asphalt.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot
Of greenery.
greenery yet on the sides at all.
Yeah.
So I guess
And
that's
this is
possibly
our
when
entrance
you
corridor.
kind of come up with like a
So like the
facade
amount of parking up front is
um,
limited. Landscape,
ordinance there to make it at least somewhat
like the
uniform.
CVS.
This is where I
is a good
think
example of- And
potentially,
And this corridor is part of our current entrance corridor overlay. And so like if you think of the CVS, that's relatively new, that the parking, there is a limit to how much parking can be right up against the roadway. And there are some landscaping standards that's very different than like the Kmart or the Big Lots, I mean. So just there are some things in place as the corridor redevelops that would help eliminate some of that asphalt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is the place where we're waiting for redevelopment
Yeah.
to catch up with, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's too, you have an ordinance, Charlottesville passed a new ordinance in 2001. They didn't really see it come to fruition for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
We really saw it come into play, but a lot of asphalt, seems a lot of inconsistency, a lot of potential improvements on the way, but
Mhm.
we're a little ways off. And then coming off Rosser, I mean, we certainly got right off the interstate, which is, we've all known is big box commercial. Talk about, there could be some retrofits in that area. If you have that kind of, in this area, you're coming in 4-lane, on this western part, median, as you, it changes pretty quickly. This is actually quite nice cross-section to come in.
That's right there at Martin's, when it changes over to residential.
Yeah. And then starts to narrow up here as you get closer to town and the 2-lane road.
A lot of the green stuff in that top right picture is gone. On
Yeah.
the left, where they're putting the townhouse, I mean, that used to be
Oh.
lots of,
Yeah, townhouse development
Yeah.
there.
now it's a big
Dirt pile.
dirt pile,
Gravel pit.
Okay.
crap. So that part of it's changing significantly too, already. As somebody who uses this is probably my second most used entry. This is where I'm sort of excited that the infrastructure is starting to catch up. Particularly, there's a pretty, in my view, pretty acute need for pedestrian infrastructure that's finally starting to be met by redevelopment in that area. It's where all of most of our grocery stores and stuff are, most of our fast casual dining is. So it's a heavily used corridor, and I think that's reflected a lot in the way that it's changing.
And we do plan to put in 3 smart scale applications specifically for this corridor for pedestrian infrastructure, and then also intersection improvement, access management upgrades at Windy Grove and Rosser, mainly from a safety perspective.
Yeah. And, you know, what's interesting to me about that entrance is you have like for context, like you have the stuff that was there when I came to town in like 2016. And then it's like behind that first layer, so like the hotel and the Cracker Barrel and the like stuff that was up there, and then the Days Inn and the Wendy's and that Exxon, and then everything behind that has kind of changed, right? So there was kind of nothing out there because the lad school was there. That's gone now, and it's the Sheets and everything. The one thing has become the car wash, whatever that was, Ruby Tuesdays or whatever.
Yeah,
So
Ruby
it's like slowly, but like that, the newer, nicer stuff that kind of meets those new
Requirements, yeah.
infrastructure and like beautification requirements is like you have to get through some of this older, more dated looking stuff to kind of hit that.
Well, that's great. You can get a pattern where the initial development comes in right along the road, and then newer behind, and enough time passes where then
Yeah.
this starts to replace. You can kind of like a pattern of reinvestment coming in.
I've always felt like that first commercial stuff there as you come into town is like kind of a missed opportunity for beautification. Like in front, between the Days Inn and the Wendy's and the road there, and then on the other side as well, it's just all guardrail and old fence and stuff.
And a couple of dead trees.
And people asking for money.
Well, this also, I mean, just from our looking at it, there's new development coming in behind all of that, and how is that all tied together?
Yeah.
And to make sure that as more gets added, new rings get added, that you have connections coming in, so what can we do to make it feel a little bit more cohesive?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this is already built out, there's retrofits, there's beautification you can make. But also, whatever new that's coming in, it's all connected in a way that starts to feel a little bit more of a place and not, just like chain commercial, which is good, but remember the activity too that we had, we asked where should commercial go, and no one put a single commercial dot in this area. It was interesting. They put all their dots in downtown. So we're looking at a few things here. So if there are some different types of corridors, I'm just gonna, again, nothing polished or final about this, just trying to see what are some different ideas that, things that you might like, or maybe not like so much, so that we know where to go with our next steps. But we had one that was more of an urban corridor, so that might be Gateway 5 and 6, of looking at, right sizing the road or median. You can look at possibilities of curb extensions or curb improvements, hopefully to find the edge of the roadway there. Screening could also be, especially in some areas where we have industrial, as in this first one, is there a possibility of some screening options we could deploy here? To hit on wayfinding, we're talking over here, as you're coming in, maybe having some branded signage to help us get to where those destinations are. So where the traffic makes sense, if your VC ratio is like under 0.5, or if you're not quite half filled up on your roadway. There are some roads that you could explore lane reductions as a possibility, on-street parking, or maybe even having some more public space along some roadways. There's some possibility of that. We talked about bike lanes, that's come up quite a bit, that could be an option in some of these corridors. More crosswalks, curb extensions, screening, wayfinding. So just these general ideas, are any of these you feel like are off the table? Any of these really show up as something you really like and you want to see more information on those? There are others that are kind of,
I think it depends on where you are. Like downtown, I would love to see two.
okay.
Yeah. As you're coming into town from like east side, I wouldn't mind seeing 3, especially coming off the mountain, because hikers could also use that and benefit from that. And then, like you said, on Delphine, 5 and 6 would probably work great.
Yeah.
And then like Rosser, 1 and 5 could work. And then even throwing in 4 up there on that end of town too, with you having most of your really dense development. Some of those side, like maybe, I feel like Ludewitt might be a little hard to incorporate 3, which is where 4 can make up for. So yeah.
I don't see demand for street parking necessarily in any of these gateway corridors.
Okay.
Nor do I think the infrastructure really supports street park, and when I say infrastructure, like lack of sidewalk, like how do you close the lane to create, so that would be my only observation, is the potentially like street parking. I just don't see the demand for it.
Well, the only place that you really have the demand is Jones Hollow coming in. There are only one house on the right side, 2 houses have
Yeah.
a driveway that you could actually pull off a 250 and park.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody else got to park on the road.
There's some I hadn't thought about that, but there's some residential in that gateway corridor that
Yep.
could probably use some additional parking. And potentially as the Basic City Brewery, Happy Coffee, that,
Metal craft.
Metal Crafters, thank you. I could see the potential for street parking there too.
And the streetscape project might include a little in front of there. I can't remember if that got nixed with the budget, but it was something that was envisioned at one time as in front of basic with some of the, with the streetscaping, East Main project.
Yeah, 'cause those houses right there beside Basic City, they're right on the road. I mean, you can't do
Yeah.
anything with them. I mean,
I agree with Nigel though that the wayfinding, that's not
Yeah.
something I had thought about before, but like, you know, you hit the city and here are the parks that you're close to, like, I think that leans into the, tie us to nature. Sorry, I'm not being super articulate.
But it also, in addition to that, it almost makes it like a scavenger hunt through the city, because using the wayfinding is taking you through different neighborhoods that you probably wouldn't have explored. Like, for instance, like when I come, if you come on Broad Street, right, and you're at the registrar's office, like me, I always use Port Republic to go to Roosevelt, but if you're using the wayfinding, it makes you go through
Florence.
And then, which is weird because it has a Port Republic address, but that's what the wayfinding does, is it forces you and pushes you through different things. And sometimes I'll see random ones throughout the city, I'm like, I never considered taking that street to get there. Yeah. But for someone that's not in the city, it could be a beneficial thing, because they get to explore different things. And if you make it intentional, it can force you to hit the other wayfinding spots, so you're checking stuff off as you're maneuvering.
Well, and as Waynesboro continues to brand itself and see which direction we want to go in, if outdoor recreation, I'm seeing a lot more street art. I mean, we went hog wild with street art this year with 7 new murals, which is great. Tie in your wayfinding signage, you know, and then those intentional corridors where if you've got the parks there, you're tying in some park signage. If you've got the Jones Hollow, let's tie in let's get them on the South River.
yeah.
And whatever our branding seems to be, tying that in. And I love, you know, I don't see enough thank you for coming signs instead of welcome to Waynesboro. Thanks for being here. As well as like when I go into upstate New York, I love driving into these communities that are using their landscaping to make the landscape is actually the symbols of the heart in New York, and the rings around it as you're entering in. You're like, all right, that's kind of cool. I just entered into New York from Vermont, and boom. I mean, I think all of them can be. What I'm feeling or sensing is intentionality, and being a little bit more intentional in our corridors and where those corridors are, and utilize them as also as we continue to brand ourselves as a community.
Well, and, you know, I think to that point, like, even what Stanton does with the City of Trees, and they have those little obvious areas that are obviously landscaped, and it's like, thank you to whoever for landscaping, and it's, that feel, you know, that's a way maybe to use some of create some incentives to do some things like that through unusual means, to do some of the screening and that kind of stuff for you. But with, you know, with kind of a clearly defined, more natural feeling, like, yeah. It doesn't feel produced, I guess.
Another thing I wanted to bring up too, because I know Waynesboro's big on nature, but I feel like because we're growing too, I don't know if it would be the best idea to make that our sole brand. I just don't want like the brand to just handcuff us into just one thing, like, oh, this is all Waynesboro's good for coming for is fishing in the river. Because we do have a lot to offer, the connection to 151 with the wineries and all the other fun stuff that there is to do here. I think Waynesboro has a unique opportunity to be multifaceted, especially with some of the big industry we have coming in, our uniqueness to preserving natural resources, our proximity to other big cities.
What are we now? Where good nature comes naturally?
Where good nature comes in.
And that branding, we were hospitality in the valley before.
Yeah.
and then our next branding strike is gonna be in another 10, 15 years. I mean, I don't even know how often we sort of rebrand the city.
But even with both of those, it's been very small town cozy. And we can keep that, but also making it flexible. I don't know.
Well, it's a relevant point with corridors too, of just what is we're trying to put forward. And,
Yeah.
you know, especially with your entrance corridors, because that with land use and that details matter. Because you all have a lot more visitors per capita coming in town than a lot of towns do. And so if someone's coming in for the first time, what are they seeing? Another thing we heard through the public stakeholder meetings with economic development folks, they were saying that Waynesboro has really come a long way in the past 10, 15 years. But a lot of folks who went downtown 20 years ago might not come back to that downtown. And how do we get them back here? How do we draw them in? And that was a real.
Yeah, 'cause they came downtown to Leggett's and A&N and the other department stores. How have other small towns throughout Virginia taken advantage of the history of their areas? You know, I know it's a touchy subject sometimes, but you know, the Shenandoah Valley, I mean, you've got the Civil War Trail all up and down the valley from Winchester all the way down to Lynchburg, and you cross over. And I know that's real prominent in some places, the further up the valley you go.
I mean, I think there's some challenges there here in recent years because history tourism is kind of been dropping off a little bit more. And battlefield tourism, I mean, just off the numbers, hasn't been on the rise in that way. That's one of the reasons why even Colonial Williamsburg is having some serious problems in terms of tourism when they put all their eggs in that basket. However, I would say,
Well, Colonial Williamsburg is a reproduction. It's not,
Yeah.
only thing authentic is the
Now
governor's mansion down
now
there,
it's historic because it was
built way back in the 50s.
right. So it's historic for different reasons now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think where history, while it might not be the sole reason to bring a tourist in, of it is.
It's an ancillary
Yes.
ancillary benefit to being there.
Yeah. That's where, you know, if someone is coming into town because they want to go fly fishing, or they're coming into town for some reason, then having that there can be something that adds value.
Yeah.
So that's where communities have kind of added on to that. Maybe signage is one thing, kind of telling the story could be part of that. But I would say kind of the biggest one is having historic buildings that you're reusing. Is the big one. I mean, that's trying to reuse those and put kind of unique uses in there that draw people in, and they can enjoy the building and being in that space.
I know Shawsville does that with the downtown mall. I mean, you got the Nook restaurant. That's one of them that pops to my mind. They've been there for 50 years. And then you got the hardware store down there. I never remembered it as a hardware store, but at one time it was an actual hardware store.
Yeah, I think we put the hardware store sign back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like Winchester, you know, if you look at them, or Benton, or Fredericksburg, just working on a list of, Lynchburg, of trying to get some of those uses and back into these buildings, reusing those buildings. Because then you're participating with historic resources. You're not just looking at it or just reading the sign. You're interacting with it.
Yeah.
I think that's where.
You know, 'cause Stanton's got Woodrow Wilson's birthplace. I mean, as far as I know, no president ever was born here, but
I'm sure someone passed through.
yeah. Well, Custer did.
Charlottesville, yeah.
One thing that springs to mind looking at this slide and right size signs and lighting. I mean, I know we've gone back and forth on sign ordinances over the years, and one thing that has occurred to me is should we have do we have different sign ordinances in highway corridors than we do in other parts of the city, or do we have a one-size-fits-all sign ordinance?
I think it's a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, I don't think we are so specific with our entrance corridors that we further restrict signage in them, but that is definitely something that entrance corridors can do in other areas, but.
I mean, I can just, I think it's like the big sheets sign in front of the new sheets is perfectly appropriate for there, maybe not, but is not perfectly appropriate for somewhere else in the city, right? And so that's something that, just looking at this slide, I'm thinking about as you come in on that corridor that's shown in the biggest picture, right? There's like a pretty significant difference in the signage between all of those parcels as you come through there, and the scale of the buildings and what's built close and what's built far back, and like, so as parts of that feel like where the Harbor Freight and the Dollar General, that like feels kind of like a remote place because it's that there's so much concrete in front of it, and whereas that Exxon feels like it's kind of crowded up against I don't know, how do we make in these entry corridors, how do we create some uniformity between those parcels so that it looks a little more cohesive?
Well, for one thing, the Big Lots and Harbor Freight, that's where the original Kmart was, and I've been here long enough to remember when that was a 2-lane road. And all the way out to Fishersville. And they widened it for whatever reason. I don't know, but that's the reason you have such a wide expanse of asphalt there now.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's not a way to
Yeah.
streamline it, and maybe by creating some more uniformity and maybe some exceptions or some sort of different parts of a sign ordinance, and think about scale and scope.
Well, yeah, I mean, talking about an entrance corridor, a gateway, I mean, signage is such a big factor.
Right.
I mean, there's also, on this one, a consolidation, you've got entrance, or
Yeah.
entrance. When you get a lot of these entrances, you have more potential for conflict points, which you tend to see more traffic accidents. That's one thing. Whereas if I'm not picking on these guys, but just as a prop, if some entrances were closed and you had more connections between parcels here, or even a back road where you can move back and forth, that actually could take a lot of pressure off the main roadway with the traffic. I think something like US 29 in Charlottesville, before they made all the improvements and changes, something like 70% of the traffic on that road was local traffic, of just moving up and down, where that road isn't built for that. That road is built for an arterial. This is meant to move you long distances, not to make little trips along the corridor.
The Exxon all would benefit from an access road that comes from behind Sharp Shopper. And if you were to close the multiple entrances to the Exxon and then take them out to the light through the Kmart, the Amazon parking lot now, I mean, you would probably cut down on a lot of the traffic, a lot of the congestion and conflict points. That gravel to the left, that's where the old Peck Barbecue used to sit. They never infilled it. The next entrance isn't used as a chain across it. And you don't really need the second entrance to the old Kmart anymore. You can always go over it at the light. So there's 3 conflict points that I don't know if the new streetscape plan addresses them or not, closes them off, and then you create a more easily traversed entry and exit corridor.
And I would say also, back to landscaping,
Mm-hmm.
for corridors that seem to feel a little choppy, of it's this, and then it's that, and then it's this again. Having consistent landscaping, I'll go back to James City County, consistent lighting. You know, everyone could have their own lights here, but if you had some standards for something consistent along the road, the way, that can make it feel a little bit more cohesive. So if this is more of our suburban corridors coming in, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend a bike lane on this section, but, you know, something where there's still an option for bike ped. It might not be right on the road, it could be set back. There are ways to retrofit, like that, again, any projects might be addressing that. But signage, lighting, landscaping, and then when we're looking at access management, those are a few things that kind of came to mind, but again, any of these strategies that you feel should be off the table, any that you feel like are important, that we should try to look more information, bring more information on that topic.
I like 2 and 3. And like I said, I think it depends, because like 4 on 250, like right here, would make sense.
Yeah.
And then it could be helped by 2.
Well,
The median can get rid of some of those left turns,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
because you have a barrier, you can't.
yeah.
Well, and you know, as much as it annoys me to drive in circles around Lucy Lane to get to the places that I want to go around there now, because they've put that solid median in, the odds of rear-ending somebody through there have been reduced significantly. So I mean, I think 4 is potentially a good solution to some of these conflict points through here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be big enough to keep somebody from trying to go diagonally around them, and you know.
I'll share one more, and then I'll do a quick show of that site analysis we did. Won't take very long, but I want to give you just a quick overview on it. If we have more of our rural corridor or rural edge, a few things to look at is, you know, there's always increasing setbacks from the road is one way to try to keep it feeling more open. There are other side effects of that, but that's certainly an approach. Native planting buffers, we talked about that earlier. Other screening here so that if there's development, try to maintain some of that rural feel, if that's something you feel is important along those corridors. When we talk about shared entrances, rather than having driveway, kind of have some shared egress to help minimize the entrances coming on the road. You could have lighting, although in kind of rural segments like that, less so, but maybe a note for all areas is dark sky lighting. I think that is not a topic that's really come up per se in public engagement, but I feel like maybe it hasn't come up just because we haven't asked about it, given the whole outdoor theme. And then, you know, with monument or wayfinding coming in, it seems like that has a place here as well. But does anything come out to you as something you want on the table, or something you'd like to see more information or
The,
move in that direction?
the only thing I would say is the shared entrances, you know, who maintains them? The city, the county, VDOT? 'Cause you're talking about basically putting in an access road alongside the main road to get to everybody's house.
Like some localities, we don't have an ordinance that specifies this, but like if there was kind of a large lot that was putting a residential, right off the roadway, that, you know, their driveway, there couldn't be then another house right beside it that had a driveway and another one, so it's just kind of a private drive.
Yeah.
But then easements that everyone has to use, so you essentially tell every landowner, you know, not everyone gets a driveway off this road. the majority of our subdivisions are occurring on an internal subdivision street.
Yeah.
So, but,
You
You
expect
could have-
driveways at every
right,
house.
but you
in.
could have an instance like this, because I don't think we require it
One
from
thing
an
that
internal subdivision street.
that I have noticed about this gateway in particular, and I don't know if it was delivered or not, but, you know, like when Anna Marie was developed, for example, and I think I've got this right, but correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, so if Anna Marie was constructed today, would they be required to build a sidewalk along Ivy there?
They would have to have a sidewalk along their frontage, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe one of the things that we need to think about is whether that's something in a relatively rural area like this, where we wanna keep that nice sort of green existing, is that something that we would really want a new developer when they came in to have to do? Create what'll now be little sections, tiny pieces of, I mean, I know I'm usually the one pounding the table about building new sidewalks, but in an area like this, the question that occurs to me is that appropriate?
Yeah, cause once you hit the city line, the county's never gonna put a sidewalk
Well,
any
and
further.
what are you connecting it, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
what are you connecting it to?
But I think, at some point, it needs to happen so that those people can filter by pedestrian access into the city. But does it change the character of this in a way, like, for example, you know, I noticed the other day, there's a sign and there's dirt being moved for a church out there that they're building that's in the city. Are they gonna have to build sidewalk all along Ivy there when they finish that site work?
So they would have to, we might have, the ability to waive that. I mean, I know we do in the subdivision ordinance,
But how far? are
but no,
they
yeah,
going?
we haven't seen us. Hannah's Ridge, they show a sidewalk.
Yeah, and they've got sidewalks.
Actually, I'm not sure Hannah's Ridge, because, so staff was interpreting the sidewalk part of the ordinance differently than we do now. And I do believe that Hannah's Ridge may have been approved when we were interpreting it the other way, that it was only sidewalks on their internal streets and not on their public road frontage. But yeah, I mean, the point's well taken that there might be the ability within our ordinance to have some waivers. Within the subdivision ordinance, council can waive it. If it's a site plan, I do think we have a little bit of flexibility with our site review team to look at it and determine whether or not we think, you know, sidewalk makes sense. So I think our zoning administrator and our review team have some flexibility there, but yes, just by the letter of the ordinance, they would, the church, if we haven't received any plans for their
Right,
development.
I'm just using that as an
Yes,
example.
they
Yeah,
would,
but-
they would be required to put sidewalk, but
And so I
they
think
do have
that,
flexibility.
that raises, to me at least, that raises a question of what is, you know, is that really the look
Yeah.
that we want for this particular corridor? Anyways, just a thought.
Little late here, but I will just point out this corridor, once you get in, and we're on the east side of the river coming into town, we had talked about this being part of downtown. But this is one that's certainly on our radar screen, these locations here. And so, I think we've got good feedback in our discussion that applies here, so we don't have a slide specifically on this one. You'll notice there's on-street parking, but there's some other no treatments you can look at to help incentivize other investment in here too. But I did wanna, before we get too late, we did look at the property there of kind of the buildability, site analysis that we talked about earlier. We looked at slope, we looked at road access, water sewer access, we looked at soils, what types of soils are in place. Flooding's not really as much of an issue there, but conservation priority. Pulled in a lot of different data sources, including soil on there, so first observation 50 coming in here, and here's that other entrance corridor coming up north. Down that way, 64 down here. The first main observation is there's a lot of very steep slopes on the property, which makes it pretty difficult. Where it's a little bit more buildable is right along this path. I could do my weatherman kind of impression. Problem is, this is a reservoir, that's the dam. Yeah, that is off limits. And it's a little bit flatter over here. It's a little bit more buildable, a little bit here, but there are big chunks of this property that just, I mean, it's over 25%. So we're talking a lot of difficulty in terms of.
Is that oriented? Okay, never mind. You answered my question.
So, certainly, obviously, looking at road access, this area, which is a little more buildable, does have road access on this end, and water and sewer. Coming off of 250 over here, which we were just talking about, and how that's more of a natural entrance into town. Obviously, road access, there's slope issues in that direction, however, and also the water sewer up in that direction, while perhaps present, is something that the water pressure is kind of a different story. Versus over on this side, again, off this entrance. But for the most part, not, from the data we had, not a lot. Looking at the soil, looking at what is kind of more ideal construction soil versus non. This again is the reservoir. Obviously water, it's a little hard to build on that. Venice or something. We have a dam there, which we're looking purely just soil, but usually not a good practice to build down dam. This is a little bit flatter in some of these areas, and also the soil is a little bit better. Over here, soil's a little bit better for construction, certainly not possible. I mean, wetlands not so much of an issue, so much as just kind of streams that lead into the reservoir. So we did look at that. On this one of just kind of what types of development might fit on the soil or on the site conditions. With larger flat areas that could be more conducive to a larger footprint. The problem is it's not really contiguous, so it's just by itself, but there's not really, the slopes and soils don't make it easy to get to it, and
The connectivity is not there.
doesn't really help you too much. But we'll go back down this end of kind of a little bit more possibility there, and a little down this end of, slope's not great. We did look at different types of land uses and what types of slope and what types of kind of land features might be more conducive. So we looked at each one of those land uses. Just there's some standard analysis you can take, some kind of textbook things you can do. Again, looking at conservation. So this is the plan we took from 1996.
Yeah.
Around there.
Sounds about right.
The Pearl Jam era plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got this plan here, and it has the golf course, and you can see where certain areas with the higher slopes they stayed away from, right? In the plan. That makes sense. So they did their own analysis. So they had, you notice more buildings on this end. This is where we're looking at the slopes of the soils. That was the end that was a little bit more buildable down that. You also notice some development here, but again, that was a flatter area and the soils were a little more conducive. So it's interesting how, when we're looking at the land data, it seemed to line up kind of the logic of how they laid this out. Of course, a lot of green space in this one. There's waterways and golf courses along here. And just some of the information pulled from that proposal just kind of polished up to make it look more modern, but this is the same proposal. That was part of that, just what they were looking at the time. Now you could look at some other options if you were looking at a park. This is just kind of a sketch of what a park could look like in terms of trails along the site. Again, kind of similar spots, because that's, again, where the developable parts are on the site. If you had like cabins, I mean, there's no research on this, just purely a rendering, just to give something to respond to, not a proposal by any means. But if you had like a welcome center here, I mean, this is a spot that's between two regions. This is the entrance point into the Shenandoah Valley for this, you know, for miles in both directions. So you had, you know, some sort of park center here as part of this. You could have, you know, cabins and lodges, so different uses on there. If you're looking at some sort of park use, you know, that could be something. We're not proposing this, what I'm gonna show you next, I wanna be clear. It's just meant to show something, we're not proposing that. But, you know, if you wanted to just like max out the site, to show the limitations of the site, you would have to just, you're going like heavy into industry. There's a couple people in the public comment forum said we should do something like this. You would have to just completely level parts of the site to flatten it out enough. And then if you were trying to do something up on this end, you basically have to just create, you know, enormous cliffs to make that balance out. And then with everything, you have to build huge bridges over areas.
A lot of capital improvement on this plan.
Yeah.
So just meant to show, you know, we saw some comments, there were some earlier plans that really built this out.
Whitewater rafting park.
If you follow those plans, you know, there's some of the challenges with it. We're not proposing this, it's just something to look at. So we did look at, just in terms of site, you know, looking at just some numbers on housing. If you look at Zillow home value index in Waynesboro, going from 2010 up to today, obviously some pretty substantial increases here as we look at this and looking at the rent index that's heading very clear direction from 2024 to 2026 here. Of this little over 2 years of what the rental market is doing. So there's certainly pressure for residential. There's certainly pressure, opportunity for more residential development. I think you all are seeing that. Tyler mentioned last time, you've already surpassed the Weldon Cooper estimates for 2030. And last I checked, it's not 2030 yet. So we did look at some of that market data. We'll say we did also do some transportation analysis on walkability, which we're not going to get into that tonight, obviously. But this was just you know, we talked about wanting a plan. This is certainly not a plan that I just showed you, but this is at least some of the data that would go into developing a vision for this area. And we wanted to give you just a quick overview and see what your initial gut reactions were.
Well, I'm all for the golf course, but the big question is, what does the man that owned that place want to do with it?
Well, that's a pretty big question.
I mean, if I'm him and I'm sitting there and I got 850 acres and now I realize this plan was years and years ago. I'm thinking, what are somebody trying to push me towards?
Well,
Hey.
is it, good.
I'm gonna refer to our resident real estate person down there.
That guy was a Greek
Yep.
naval yard magnate who I think lost his. I talked to Skylar about him back in the day because I was curious. I was wondering why if I could get my hands on the land. With some of Dwayne Jones's goals of some additional outdoor recreation and tying in Sunset Park to some areas, and with the limited development opportunities, I love your scales on the cliff of the manufacturing. Just brought me great joy. You know, will you encourage Brusham to donate to the city like Shirley Smith did with her land, but this time keep it as a park? you know, and do something.
Yeah, cause right now it's a hunt club, I think.
To me, the question, Will, is how do we set the conditions in the comprehensive plan to create an incentive for that person, for the owner, to do something with it that conforms with the recreational use idea and some I think there has to be there's some kind of development on it. So how do we set those conditions in the comprehensive plan in a way that dovetails with all of these goals, right? Because, you know, unless somebody comes along with
A lot of money.
50, 80 to $100 million that they want to take a chance on this, you know, I don't see this. But so how do we, what are the tools that we need, and can we get as granular as specifying with this parcel? Hey, we'll give you the incentive to put whatever, $5-10 million for the houses in the bottom third of it if you create an opportunity for, and I'm not saying this with specificity, I'm just trying to, you know, how do we set those conditions so that you can use the potential, the stuff that's easy to develop, to create incentive to take the stuff that's not as easy to develop and make it whatever we decide as a city we want it to be, whether that's a park or a state park or a local park or a, you know, I don't even know, mountain biking, whatever, something that dovetails with Sunset, and then how do we create all those connections? Because that's, I mean, you're not going to get it for nothing.
Right.
And we can't just say, well, I don't think we can just say we're going to take it. And I don't think we can just say, and make it a park, right? So there's got to be some trade-off here. But how do we set the conditions so we're not in the place that we all were with the Smith Farm thing, having to swallow something that we would all prefer that we not have to swallow as against what it could have been,
County has
with all due respect to Smith Farm and what it is.
25%.
That's the real question for me for this property, is how do we keep ourselves out of that situation where we got a planning commission 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road saying, well, they could put 900 houses, but they're only putting 600 and they're giving a 5-acre park, when I think everybody agrees that the best, if, let's say hypothetically, everybody agrees that the best use is a 50-acre park.
I mean, you can have a steep slope ordinance. We don't have one, but you can have, like, I think Albemarle County says you can't develop on anything over 25%, and that's just their ordinance. That's the way it is.
Now,
That would take
wait,
care of it.
I mean, and the other thing is, like, how do we do this to this piece of property? How do we set the conditions that create success for this piece of property without just spot zoning it to make it what we want?
Well, it's because of the comp plan.
Right, and I guess that's why I'm trying to frame the question.
Yeah, the levers you can pull, and Leslie just hit on the major one, is regulation. So you create regulation that could be direct, as in the future land use map shows this as a park. And then you can, your zoning is not vested. You don't have essentially vested rights in the zoning you have.
Right.
The court case and staff account. But, so you could then change the zoning on this to something that wouldn't allow for development, or for much development. There's zoning changes like steep slopes would be a big one here, which makes this site very difficult to develop. So there are regulations, that lever you can pull. There's initiatives you can pull, like building partnerships with the property owner, building partnerships with investors, marketing the site for some specific use. I don't want to presume what your vision is for this site. What we heard from the public was most folks said that they wanted this to be a park. I'm not convinced that this property, it has to be a binary, it's all one thing or all another thing. I'm looking at that corner over on the west side that's fairly developable, and it's on an entrance corridor. Could that part develop and then the rest become a park? The parts of it, that's something we should talk about. But there on the programming side of, there could be programming that you develop that introduce develop all all the time to help
Bless you.
incentivize development of an area. And then there's investments. That's where you make direct capital investment of purchasing the property. I'm not recommending you do that. I'm just saying that's something, it's an option. There could be a direct investment in infrastructure. If you want some areas developed, providing the infrastructure can certainly do that. So you have the regulatory lever, the initiative, the program, the investments. It depends on what your vision is of what levers are appropriate and which ones aren't. It's a great question, it's an important question, because if all we come away with in this process is just, this is what we want to do, but we forget that discussion that you just brought up, of that these are the levers we pull to make that happen, then we didn't complete the job.
Right.
We've only got a vision, but that's it, then it's not gonna happen unless we have structure in place.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's just my, experience of what kind of some of the stuff that we've been through, but I feel some obligation to like take some affirmative steps as a planning commission to try to set this up for success. Success, of course,
Can we
meaning-
create a commission to review potential uses and make recommendations? And does it have to fall within the comprehensive
Well,
plan? I mean,
yeah.
I'm seeing you ready to make some regulations right in the next week.
Maybe maybe what the comp plan says, maybe what the comp plan says is there needs to be a commission or a committee or a subcommittee or a whatever work group to come up with a mission for this. And
Right,
maybe
and
that's
work
too
with the
specific.
landowner, yeah.
What,
Because I don't think that it's really within our mandate as a planning commission to contact the owner of this property, right? That's something that's more on the city side, but I think you're right, Jeff, like there's gotta be I think just dropping a regulation on it would be short-sighted without some engagement from the person who owns the place about what they see happening
well,
there.
let me ask this, Leslie and Allison. What is that zoned right now? Agriculture or what?
Or it's PUD. It's a planned unit development. So back in 96, when they
Yeah.
got this approved, it's a category we have where they kind of create their own zoning, so to speak, and they lay out the property and they say exactly what it's gonna look like. And so they did that, and that's that map right there.
Yeah, that was a golf course, because I remember the
So-
model sitting over in the Gorch building.
Yeah, so the only way they could develop it today is if they kind of followed to the letter of that ordinance that they put forth. And just to be honest, I don't think anyone could today with the economics do it. So anything that goes there would have to come back to the city.
Because what I wouldn't like to happen is that what one of our neighboring localities did, they went in, the land had been in the family for over 150 years. The family is never, ever gonna sell it. It's never, ever gonna be developed. But the locality went in and rezoned the property to be developed against the family's wishes, the community's wishes, and everybody else. I don't wanna see us go down that same path.
Well, but part of yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
Because
think-
personally, I'd like, leave it the way it is. If a man wants to build him a house, he's got 800 acres of grass he gotta mow.
Well, but I think the idea behind it, I hear what you're saying, but I think the idea here would be to create a use that serves more citizens than the current use serves,
Yes.
right? Which I think the current use serves, whatever, that's.
But I don't think we'd be doing the due diligence if in those discussions, we did not involve the owner or his family.
Well, and just to be clear, I mean, the city has, like, talked with the property owner in the recent, I guess, 2 or 3 years, I would say,
Yeah.
with some of these plans and ideas. So, yes, of course, I don't think it would have any political will from
Yeah.
our city council to kind of move forth without having that discussion. so yes, the city has been in contact with the property owner about some potential ideas, park and otherwise, and those would continue.
Because hasn't he already donated a right of way from the trailhead up on the mountain down to Waynesboro for the greenway to connect through?
That's not my understanding now.
Oh,
Doug, too, this came up in the steering committee, because there were a lot of public comments on this. And this was heavy public comments,
And it's the largest undeveloped piece of land
Yeah.
that the city has left.
and it's right on the gateway.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I would recommend, I think there's all agreement of the property owner being a partner
Of
in
course.
this, and when you're talking about what are some levers you can pull, instead of talking in general sense, it's the four I was talking about. However, whatever that is, that should be a relationship, a good bond between the city and the property owner working together to try to figure that out. But
yeah, because at some point or another, and I'll defer to Jeff's expertise down at the end of the table, at some point, the developmental opportunity of this property does not justify the cost of it because of the shape of the property, where it's at, the railroad that cuts through there that you gotta deal with. You know, is the quote unquote $50 million investment worth it?
Well,
It's whatever their business plan and
Yeah,
Be curious to, well, I guess I would be cautious to put too much speculation into something that we don't even have ownership over.
yeah.
I think you can just go down a really deep rabbit hole with a lot of possibilities and fairy tales.
Cause personally, if it was my property, I wouldn't do anything with it. It would stay like it is for perpetuity.
put in an easement,
Yep.
conservation easement, and
And let it go.
well, but, right, but the idea, again, I think the idea here is,
Is to hit off a potential future.
right, that's what I see as our obligation here
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this property,
Yes,
is,
that's the only thing.
Yeah,
is to protect it against, uses that we're gonna regret, that some other planning commission 20 years from now may come to regret in the
Yeah.
same way, well, I'll leave it at that.
Well, and so speaking to like the steep slope ordinance, that is common in some localities because of the desire to keep the natural landscape and so there's greater public benefit there, so that wouldn't be in any way to, hamstring this property. It would just be, across the board in the city, we're gonna say slopes over 25% aren't gonna be leveled for development, and that's something that happens in a lot of localities, so that you can keep your natural landscape and the environmental benefits and otherwise.
So leaving aside the financial component of it, if I had a lot that was like this and I wanted to build a wall, as long as I could engineer it, I could build it under our current.
Yeah, we have no steep slope restrictions. Yes.
So and I think, I agree with Will. I think what we as a city have to do too is make sure we found the balance between government overreach and what's,
yeah,
so it's not seeming like we're targeting, like we're
Yeah.
preying on a specific property, and then it's like, okay, we're just hoping we can put enough restrictions on it in this particular area in hopes that if something does work in our favor, then we're already set. I think good planning is always the intent, but making it to where it's not targeting.
yeah.
Well, and as Lojo was saying, and Al was saying, of zone PUD, if they wanted to develop it, PUD, you have to develop it according to approved master
Right.
plan.
Yeah.
And so, to go to your question, back to your question, Will, to prevent getting something we don't want here, I mean, if they wanted to do something other than this, they would have to come back through with
Right,
the zoning
right.
regulation. And so, that's going back to that lever of regulation, that is already in place here,
And then having the comp plan identify generally what the city would like, then when that development application comes in, you're able to say it fits or doesn't fit
Right.
with the plan that we have put forth.
But here's my concern about that is if, you know, you look at Hopeman Parkway, for example, and the densities along Hopeman Parkway that I think, some of which I think don't conform with some of the other large lot residential that's over there in some ways, right? Like the stuff right along the road. And so if we don't, my concern with, not to say that you're suggesting we do nothing, but my concern with relying on the PUD regime for them to have to come back is that there's something we can't foresee about this, or some change in the zoning laws, or some change in the future that we're gonna, that some, you know, down the road, there's some by right, something that could happen here. That's the unforeseeable that scares me, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because what I don't want, what I feel some obligation to do again is to prevent a future planning commission from having to pick from two bad choices because they're constrained by the PUD.
The lesser of two evils.
Yeah,
so to
but
speak.
So the PUD that exists today, I don't think anybody
Right.
can develop to it. So
I understand it.
So any new rezoning application, whatever we envision and the community envisions in a broad brush way. So if it's a mix, like Will mentioned, like, hey, we foresee some low-density residential in this area. We foresee mostly this area being conserved based on various environmental and/or other factors. Then when anybody comes in with any kind of application to do some type of development, then the planning commission does have the direction that you're hoping for to say, that does not match at all what we had envisioned for this property.
So you would say that the PUD would give the city the most discretion, or the widest, I'm struggling for the right words, but like the widest, the most potential oversight, because this is as restrictive as it could possibly be.
The way it is now, and then
Yeah.
if they wanted to move forward with another PUD, it gives you the most upfront. This is the number of units, this is the preserved area, this is what it all looks like. Yes, you have, if they just said we want to rezone it to RS12, which is our large lot, we wouldn't have really any control over where the development happened and where the conservation areas occurred. It would just be kind of based on the market and site development, which obviously they would be restricted based on slopes and other things. But yes, a PUD, the way our ordinance is currently written, gives the city the most control over the layout, and then them being tied to that layout, rather than just coming in with a new preliminary plat or a final plat.
Right.
And amending boundaries under their existing zoning. The PUD is most restrictive.
How legally ironclad are PUD when they become totally unattainable?
It's, I mean, with the PUD, because
have,
the
like,
applicant is
$1 million.
agreeing to those.
Right.
There's some monetary contribution too.
It totally depends on the wording of the PUD and as it's approved. But it seems in this case, they would only be able to do those things that are laid out in this approved plan. And that would still require a long process of site planning.
There's
Right,
also a large monetary contribution that was factored into the PUD.
Because I can imagine, right,
Pretty iron.
I can just imagine as a lawyer
I want to say.
trying to be creative, saying, well, what you've done functionally is you've zoned this in a way that we can never do anything with it, and that's not fair, and it's a taking, and I bet I can find 12 people that agree with me on a jury. And, that's where my brain immediately goes. These are the hypotheticals that I'm worried about, and maybe they're so remote that I shouldn't worry about
But
them.
it
and that's what
also
I
goes
defer
back,
to.
it also goes back to Nigel's point. You don't want anything to feel targeted.
Well, but
Because this is the last large undeveloped lot within the city limits.
Well, and I think what Leslie was pointing at is that you can make things that are overarching
Yeah.
to where you
Yeah.
can avoid the appearance of
Yeah.
it being targeted. So what I'm hearing from you and staff is that the immediate action would be that overlay ordinance that would incorporate like this, you can't build over a certain slope.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that, that's an approach.
Do I hear a
we take.
motion?
I'm saying that that is a possibility, and it has other it has benefits aesthetically, it has environmental benefits, it has a range of benefits, and that's why it's done in localities all over the place that they decide to do that. I was mentioning it to say, we don't have that anywhere else, and likely there's environment or economic constraints that are going to keep them from developing on those slopes anyway. But that is something that can be put in place. Albemarle County has it. I don't know if they have a waiver process or if people just recognize, okay, I can't develop on these slopes. But there's larger benefits, aesthetic and environmental, that come along with that.
Yeah,
If
I
this
guess
is the
it's, sorry, go ahead.
only- if this is the only property that has these steep slopes, I kind of feel like it'd be kind of hard to say this is not targeting when there's not other property in the city that has as steep a slope.
I would say we have other properties that,
Do we?
How?
Yeah,
I would have to do a
my,
topographic analysis, but I'm sure there are other places within the city that hit that 25%.
I hesitate to rely on the economics, and I'm trying to put my finger on it, the economics of the PUD and those sorts of things. Because, where I grew up outside of Northern Virginia in Culpeper County, things got developed that nobody ever thought were gonna get developed. And things that nobody could have foreseen, I think, that everybody could agree were not ideal, wound up happening. And I'm not saying, we just can't forecast those things, and so that's why I'm skeptical about potentially relying on the economics of it to get something done. But, and that's where I think maybe, to your point, Will, like, we have to figure out which one of these which of these levers need to be pulled. And the question, again, in my mind, is how do we identify those? How do we use the comprehensive plan to make sure we identify those before the conditions change, and while we can make an informed decision with the best information we have?
We're talking about this site too, because, it was a hot button topic for the public comment period, and we
It's
figured
like-
that enough.
It's time.
But,
It's time, dirt.
it's a lengthy about, but it also serves as a good prop.
Sure.
Because there are other undeveloped properties.
And there are others that we have on a list that, we want to bring up. This is just kind of one that is the largest.
So like the steep slope example on that one, like, there are other vacant properties, a lot of vacant properties may be vacant for a reason, because there are site limitations like steep slope. Or soil or other conditions. So, it serves as a good case study of other properties around the city. So that's part of this discussion. It's not only the levers on this property, but the levers in general. Some of these other properties that have not developed yet, or already have an approved plan in place, which that's come up. What are some of the levers there? I would say, for this specific site, I think the main lever right now is just that relationship with the property owner, just working together. That's probably where we spend time on this. And looking at this, I see where you're coming from. I don't really have concerns about, it's a PUD, it's approved. If they wanted to do something else, they would have to come to you for a reason.
Right.
You hold the power as a city on those decisions. I showed some data to show why this plan looks the way it does, because there's a lot of site realities here.
Yeah.
You just can't build on some of this.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why that is there, and that is there, and that is there. And, that's kind of just the realities of it. It would be, I think, having those discussions with the property owner, I think, talking in loose terms of just a vision or just some ideas for this part of the city. That, that property owner, if that's something that inspires them, that might be something, having a vision, a general vision for this area. We've already talked about that a bit on this corridor. Some of the things that we talked about was that corridor, we liked that natural vision for this part of the city can be something that would be something that the city can point to when they're working in that partnership of what is something that we'd like to see here.
What, I'd be curious, because I'm gonna go back to a point Jeff made in our last work session. The top of the mountain. Once that's developed, I can see it spilling over and across 64 and encompassing this I'd be curious to know what restrictions the county has on the two adjacent properties that they own. As far as zoning and what they're requiring and all that. Because once the top of the mountain is developed, it's just a domino effect right down into Waynesboro. May not be in my lifetime, but
Yeah, I don't disagree that this may need to be a part of a larger conversation.
yes,
about
I mean,
the mountain, too.
you've got a large tract of undeveloped property between the top of the mountain and the city.
Well, and to your point, like, if they're gonna build a visitor center up there, we shouldn't be planning for a visitor center down here, right? Or vice versa. So I think even with some of the, more realistic uses than the PUD, there needs to be some cohesion between,
You don't want,
plans.
you don't want duplicity.
That's a good point.
Is there a way to find out, Leslie, what the county has put on those two parcels? At what zoning requirements within the county those two properties fall under?
I don't know for sure. I could certainly look it up. My guess is that they're zoned general agriculture,
Okay,
and they just have never developed for
And they probably
same
have similar
site.
slope issues.
slope
Yeah.
issues. If they're zoned general agriculture, you can only divide one lot a year. It has to be on a public road.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps them from subdividing or developing in any way.
Yeah. Cause you know what, like I said, once the top of the mountain develops, you got spillage probably over into Chinkapin, down the mountain, and everywhere.
Keep using the word slope. We might have a use for that space. Let's put some,
Skis,
or water park slides. A high angle coming down.
All right, so the trout starts at the top.
The
of
trout
the
starts.
trout starts, he slides down.
downhill.
It's like,
We've blasted through our sort of unwritten 2-hour rule here.
yeah,
Yeah. It's good discussion.
But this is a very fascinating discussion. I could sit here and talk about it far longer than anybody wants to listen to me.
yeah.
I'm sure.
But I think we're headed in the right directions. I think you're fine, your overarching 6 points. We're asking a lot of questions, we're having a lot of discussions, so we're beginning to hone down in on it.
Yeah, I think I got a lot of good feedback on the corridors. That was another topic. On the goals, it seems like we're tracking in the right direction.
Yeah.
With, this was the property that showed up on there, but this is a case study of other vacant properties and just strategies. I mean, this one got potential to partner, with the property owner here. That might not always be the case with other properties. So, we talked about, a lot of different ideas in terms of tools, landscaping, the slopes, things we can consider in terms of land use tactics. So, yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Well, have we covered what we were supposed to cover this evening?
We did.
All right.
We ticked off every box.
Then
Can we get on?
I think we,
Can I get a motion?
Wait, we still have 3 items on the agenda.
okay, public comment period for items not on the agenda. There's no members of the public present. Matters from staff.
I don't have anything currently. We'll be, setting up another meeting with Will in the future and get with you all on that.
Please
July
send the
7th.
trout thing to everybody.
Or send it to Leslie so,
Yeah.
she can send it out to us, the slide.
But yeah, so July 7th
July
is the
7th.
planned next land use work session.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, correspondence, and communication. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, the motion carries.
The motion carries.